Welcome to the No Sugarcoating Podcast. I am Amber Romaniuk, emotional eating, digestive, and hormone expert. I am also the founder of amberapproved.ca. I support professional women achieve optimal health through mindful eating, self-care, and overcoming self-sabotage with food. This podcast provides the honest truth on what you really need to create body freedom. The No Sugarcoating Podcast provides information on healthy living, lifestyle changes, nutrition, and diet, and is intended for informational purposes only. Always seek the advice of your healthcare practitioner regarding your health and nutrition program. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 305 of the No Sugarcoating Podcast. I'm so excited to have all of you here with me today. We're having a beautiful day, a great week, depending on where you are in the world. We're going into fall very soon here in Alberta, Canada, North America. I love fall. It's my favorite time of the year. The leaves are changing. The weather's getting a little bit cooler. It's like tea, cozy sweaters. I want to bake a pumpkin loaf this weekend. So it's time. I'm so ready. I love it. Absolutely love it. So this week, I've been thinking about this episode for a while, and I really felt called to share it this week because it really connects to me talking a bit more about Food Prep Magic, which is launched now. And I really want to talk about estrogen dominance and what creates it and ways to address it, because this is something that I really struggled with. Probably now it was about 8 years ago, and really addressed it. And even to this day, it's something that I monitor really closely for myself, and I'll get into all the whys. But I really want to talk about this because it's more common than you would think. A lot of women struggle with estrogen dominance, and men too. I'm really going to speak on behalf of women today in this episode, but it's a hormone imbalance that is definitely not addressed and looked at very closely unless you're taking a more natural approach. And I want to dive deeper into it. So that's really what we're going to explore today. And the show notes for today's episode can be found at amberapproved.ca/podcast/305. Be sure to check out all the show notes there. You can subscribe to the podcast by clicking the link in the show notes or subscribing on any podcast app. And I just want to share that I am going to be talking about, in the end of the episode, I'm going to be talking about Food Prep Magic, which is my 4-week online live food prep course that you can totally come and dive into now. We already have a really amazing group of women in the program. We start Sunday, September 19th at 12 p.m. Mountain Time, and you can use code Food Prep Magic, all caps, to save $111 off. That's the early bird price until end of day, Monday, September 13th. So if you want to come and dive in, you can use the code. You can still enroll after that. It's just going to be the full price at $333. It's going to be so much fun, and I'm going to talk about it once I get into the episode because, like I said, it's a great segue. And nourishing food and having good food available is a big part of dealing with estrogen dominance. So finding a specific eating style isn't working for you, you're struggling with emotional eating, food addiction, digestive issues, inflammation, you suspect your hormones are off, or maybe you're wondering if you have estrogen dominance, self-care continues to be a struggle, you're fighting with your body, your weight, well, you are in the right place because I'm going to continue to explore these different topics and talk to you about them on a very deep level to help you dive into the habits and mindsets to set you on a different path. Amber Approved offers private coaching for ambitious women to help with hormone imbalances, weight loss, digestive issues, emotional eating, and more. If you are ready to dive deep into the root issues of what is causing your challenges, contact info@amberapproved.ca to inquire about how we can work together. Or you can go to amberapproved.ca and click Apply to Work Together and book your 30-minute body freedom session. I look forward to supporting you to food and body freedom. So I want to share my estrogen dominance story first because I think it's very relatable and it's something that's just going to help you better understand what this is really about. And so estrogen dominance is really elevated estrogen, too high of a level of estrogen. Yes, we need some estrogen in our bodies. However, when we have estrogen dominance, it's like 5 to 10 plus times higher than what it should be. And so for me, what ended up happening is I obviously went through food addiction, binge eating, over exercising, dieting, restriction, and all of that was really hard on my emotional health, my mental health, my physical health, my digestive system, my hormones. It was really hard on, there's a spiritual aspect too, right? Like my intuition. It was really hard on my frequency, my vibration. But what I'm really focusing on today is this physical estrogen piece. And so I would say I stopped binge eating like 10 years ago now, 9 years ago. It's hard to keep track now. It honestly seems like a completely different lifetime that happened. But essentially what ended up happening is going through the food addiction and everything I just mentioned really skewed my hormones. And so what happens with estrogen is ideally we want to have pretty balanced levels of progesterone and estrogen, which are sex hormones. They're obviously very important for women in reproduction and your cycle and really a big part of what makes us a woman in just like when we hit puberty and we start producing higher levels and then we grow breasts and like it's your cycle is like largely dictated by your sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Everything plays a role with these hormones. And so after stopping binge eating, I had obviously a lot of hormone imbalances and gut imbalances going on. And I knew for quite a long time that my cortisol, which is your stress hormone, was a good 10 times higher than it was supposed to be. But what I didn't realize is the longer that stayed elevated, because I still had a lot of stress, because my body was obviously overwhelmed after like multiple years of really intensive binge eating and exercising, that I had this elevated cortisol that was having a negative impact on my other hormones. And so I didn't know that. And I was trying to start working on getting my cortisol down. So I started taking maca, and maca is a really great adaptogenic herb that helps with lowering cortisol. However, what I didn't realize at the time is that maca boosts up estrogen. So there was like my first little oops. And this is, of course, before I knew what I know now about hormones, before I really dove in and did my research and got educated and learned from some great mentors. So first, oops, I was consuming maca every morning to help with my cortisol. The next thing was I was continuing to work out really intensively 4 or 5 days a week, because I had this limiting belief that was like, you need to eat less and exercise more to lose weight. And so here I am exhausted, such low energy. I have got extreme adrenal fatigue, and here I am working out like crazy because I want to lose weight, even though I'm gaining weight. So I'm gaining weight at this point. I went from where it's easy for me to maintain and then gain 10 pounds and then gained another 10 pounds easily. And then it seemed like 20 just came back on really easily. And then I was back up to my peak weight that I was when I was binge eating, but I wasn't binge eating. And it was really baffling, I guess you could say, because I just could not understand why I was gaining weight and why I couldn't lose it at all. And so though I had this limiting belief of exercise. And later I would realize that it was actually doing me a disservice to let that limiting belief lead me. Another thing that I was doing at the same time, and this is why it's so important to know your hormone picture and work with someone who knows all of the pieces rather than blindly doing it on your own, ideally, because you make these innocent little oopses and they can have a really significant impact. So I decided through all the not good things that I put my body through, my digestion was just an absolute nightmare, and I was sensitive to everything, and everything made me bloated. And I was just like, I need to figure out my digestion, balance my digestion, get rid of my leaky gut. I don't want to be bloated anymore. Everything I ate was giving me pain and discomfort. And so I read somewhere, right? Like nobody told me this, or I just read this thing and it's like, okay, well, to fully balance your digestion, just cut out fruit and eat lots of protein, lots of fat, like veggie carbs, and cutting out the fruit will help balance your digestive system, and like no grains. And so of course this was before I knew what I know now. And I started doing that and it was horrible. I don't wish for anybody to do it. I was eating like tuna and like steamed cauliflower for breakfast. It was ugh. And I hate fish. So I was like, I don't even know how I did that, to be honest. And so I was eating a ton of yams, which is the orange sweet potato. I was eating tons of peas, tons of beets, because I needed to get more sugars from my starchy carbohydrate vegetables since I wasn't having fruit. And I noticed that my energy levels plummeted more because now I was depriving myself of more like quick energy from fruit that I would usually have in the morning. And because I was eating more protein early in the morning, right before the gym or for my breakfast, it would drop my energy more because protein rather takes more energy to break down than if you say have a piece of fruit first to give you some energy. It doesn't take as much energy to break the fruit down versus a piece of fish or meat. And so because I was eating all these sweet potatoes or yams and the peas and the beets, which are all rich in estrogen, high in estrogen, by the way, which I didn't know at the time, right? There was that oops, is like now I am eating really high protein, high fat with lots of carbohydrates still. That takes more energy to break down. And then that was giving me even more of a cortisol stress response in the morning because I wasn't eating enough carbohydrates with my breakfast. And if we don't eat enough carbohydrates with our breakfast, it messes up morning cortisol imbalance even more. So I was messing up my cortisol even more and eating more estrogen rich foods. And so the higher my cortisol got, the lower your progesterone gets. So at some point your estrogen and progesterone, like I said, they're supposed to be pretty equal. But when your adrenal glands, which produce your cortisol, are so overwhelmed and stressed out, and they need to keep producing such an elevated level of cortisol, which isn't normal, your body starts to steal other hormones to convert into cortisol. So progesterone gets stolen to convert into cortisol, thyroid hormone. And so my thyroid was going underactive at the same time and connected to the cortisol and the stress. And then also my progesterone was dropping because my body was stealing it to convert into cortisol to keep me functioning in this high state of fight or flight, which is not normal for us to be in for more than a couple of minutes. And I was in it for like a few years. So when your progesterone goes down, your estrogen has no choice but to go up and dominate. So here I am innocently taking this maca and it's boosting my estrogen. I'm eating all these estrogen rich foods. I'm by accidentally messing up my cortisol more because I have this limiting belief of over exercising or needing to exercise to lose weight, even though I'm gaining weight. And I'm eating all this protein and fat, which is messing up my cortisol even more and is not friendly for cortisol regulation. And the scale just keeps going up, up, up. But I'm learning how to love myself at this point. So even though it's happening, like I'm not being as hard on myself as I would have years prior to that, which did show me the growth. And I was just grateful to not be binge eating as well. So that all happened. And I just got to the point where I'm like, something isn't right. I'm doing my blood work. My estrogen looks good on blood, but my breasts are tender before my cycle, like a few days. I just feel like really warm and puffy all the time. My cycle was kind of irregular and I couldn't lose weight no matter what I did. And I wasn't restricting food. I was eating enough, but I definitely like the 4 or 5 days a week at the gym, right? I was really pushing myself and it just felt like the water retention kept coming on more and more and more. And I'm just like, what the heck is going on? And obviously through my whole food addiction, like eating all these processed foods, restricting, doing all these different diets, negative self-talk, like all the inflammation that I caused to my body also played a role because the more inflammation we have, the more it fuels high estrogen levels. So this is a big piece. And this is why I want to talk about food prep magic at the end, because it's just such an important piece that we can really start to change, baby steps easily. And I want to provide you with that support. So I literally innocently created the perfect storm to create estrogen dominance by all the things that I've just described to you. And I had no idea that I was doing it, but my blood work looked good. So I didn't think much of it. And then I was like, you know what? It had been suggested to me maybe to try a saliva test and see if anything would look different because saliva measures more of a long-term storage of the hormones in the tissues versus in the blood, which can fluctuate a little bit more easily, especially if you have symptoms and the blood looks good. Like it's a second level to investigate, which I think is just really, really, really powerful. And so I did this saliva test and sure enough, my estrogen was 10 times higher than it was supposed to be. My progesterone was way too low. And it was really helpful to do this and see because I needed that to happen so that I could really come to terms to accept that my cortisol is not going to go down until I rest, like really honestly rest, which means stopping the intense exercise. For me, that's a decision that I made because it wasn't helping. It was just hurting everything. And my cortisol just kept going up. Didn't matter how much self-care I did. It didn't matter how much I slept or how good I ate. It just kept going up. And so it was scary and it was nerve-wracking to make that decision, but it made a huge difference with my hormones. So I quit the gym. Once I discovered that, I started taking different things to help naturally build up my progesterone. And I started taking different things to help reduce my estrogen. I stopped the maca because I had found out that that was not helping. And I stopped doing the gut protocol I was doing because it wasn't helping my hormones. It was making everything worse. And I started having like oatmeal with fruit for breakfast and coconut oil and cinnamon, things like that. And I started to notice a difference in my energy levels quite quickly, improving in the brain fog reducing, because I was now giving my body the fuel she really desired based off of my current hormone picture. And it probably took about a year to like fully get everything, particularly with the estrogen, back down. It probably took about a year and a half for my cortisol, just because it was so elevated, and my progesterone, like finally, my last saliva test, it's like never been as good as it looks. I've been working on my progesterone for a long time. And so everything's really good with that. And so I really wanted to just highlight some of the symptoms and talk more about this because it's very common. And I see it in a lot of my clients. For some, it shows up on the blood, and some saliva testing further confirms it. But I needed to go through this to learn about this for myself. And I really learned how to accept myself at my heaviest weight at the time. And the other thing is that I surrendered and challenged a limiting belief. And I swear to you, as soon as I started really like giving my body what she needed for her current picture, like the protection just started coming off because I wasn't fighting anymore. I wasn't doing the exercise that was draining my body. I wasn't eating weird things for breakfast to try and balance my gut when I could have had more balance. And I was taking the proper vitamins to help. And I was really not committing too much outside of just like taking care of myself. And it really made a big difference. And it's, like I said, it's something that I will still get tested like every year because I want to make sure that it doesn't go up. And I've had times where has gone up a little bit more. And then I look at what's going on in life, what's going on, like, is there anything else physically in the body? Because there's many things that can fuel estrogen dominant. So the high cortisol and the body stealing the progesterone to convert into cortisol, that is a way that we end up with estrogen dominance. If we have a lot of candida, which I also had that also, which is unhealthy bacteria balance in the large intestine, also called yeast overgrowth. So yeast/candida, whatever you want to call it, feeds estrogen, and estrogen feeds yeast. So that's why it's so important to work on regulating the gut flora, but you don't have to restrict and eat what I was eating. I don't do that, and I don't give that to my clients either. There's much more manageable ways to do that, and you figure these things out over time. But we have to address candida. If you have heavy metals, that can fuel estrogen. So there's all these different things. Our liver, if we're not detoxifying properly with the liver, we can definitely increase our estrogen levels. Like I said, inflammation being elevated from binge eating, emotional eating, overeating, eating really processed foods, making poor food choices on a regular basis, high stress levels, not getting enough sleep, dehydration, gut flora issues, like all these things can fuel inflammation. And the more inflammation we have, the more it just fuels this estrogen in the body. Also, I discovered through doing more research that plastic containers, drinking out of plastic water bottles, plastic food containers, all this absorbs into the water and the food I'm consuming. And then I'm consuming all of these toxic plastics. And this actually fuels something called xenoestrogens, which are essentially like become toxic estrogens and increase the amount of estrogen in the body and in the fat cells. And not only that, but also the heavy metals like lead, arsenic, and mercury, which come from the environment, the sky. If you've ever heard of chemtrails, I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. You can spot them so easily. And why are they spraying barium and aluminum into the sky, right? Like food for thought. So it's in the water, and pesticides, fungicides, like I said, plastics. So BPA, I don't even trust stuff that says BPA free because is it just a marketing loophole? Car exhaust, petroleum-based household products, beauty products. So like all your shampoos, soaps, perfumes, fragrances, cosmetics, things you're putting on your skin, like you absorb in 25 seconds what you're putting on your skin into your bloodstream, and then your liver has to filter through it all, and that's getting absorbed into your cells. So the more toxic the products are that we're putting on our body and that are in our environment, like burning scented candles that are fragrance plants-based instead of essential oil-based, we absorb all that and then end up with far too high of estrogen numbers, but then get frustrated with our body because we can't lose weight and we get so hard on ourselves. But it's all these little things that accumulate over time and really fuel what is this estrogen dominance picture. And so some of the most common symptoms are breast tenderness before your cycle, and like days or a couple of weeks. Like when it was really bad for me, it was like 2 weeks leading up to my cycle that I had the breast tenderness. And now it's like very little, or if not at all, which I'm so grateful. And like I said, it's really easy to gain weight. It feels really difficult, if not next to impossible, to lose it because you're so inflamed, you're retaining so much water, and it's really difficult for the body to release protection when there's all this stress and inflammation and massive hormone imbalance going on that impacts your metabolism too. I found that I felt very warm and very puffy all the time. And it just felt like my body was just hanging on to more and more and more retention. But I'd like wake up in the night and feel warm, and just randomly through the day would just start feeling warm. So these are some common signs of this estrogen dominance. I'd say those are some of the biggest signs that this could be going on for you. And of course, via doing blood work or saliva testing and confirming elevated numbers. And so I've already described to you what happened to me. So eating the estrogen rich foods, the beets, the peas, the yams, even hummus, right? I was doing more of that. Inflammation from just overcoming food addiction and my high cortisol levels, the low progesterone caused from the high cortisol and too much stress, the poor liver detoxification pathways, the candida that was feeding the estrogen feeding candida, using too many chemicals on my skin and in my household for cleaning, right? Fabric softeners, cleaning supplies, the bounce or the downy sheets, like that stuff is absolutely horrible for us. It's full of chemicals. Once you stop using this stuff, like you can smell it and it does not smell good. And like, I didn't just change all this overnight. Like I spent like months. I'd use something up or throw it out and then get something new, because I respect people have a budget too, but it was worth investing in better products because it's your health and well-being and long-lasting risk of having high estrogen. I mean, you don't want to end up with some kind of estrogen-dominating cancer or other health concerns that can potentially evolve over time if we don't address this from the roots, which you totally can, and you can totally get rid of it. I've done it. I've helped many women do the same thing. But it's so important that we start to just make these little changes, because it definitely does make a big difference. Not just what we're putting in our body for food, but what we're putting on our skin and what's in our environment. So I wanted to share that because estrogen dominance is very common and we can't fully address it until we look at the symptoms and do testing and then, start to make these changes across the board. And so I think as far as how we address it, the first biggest thing is if you suspect, you have this feeling that things feel off and something like this may be going on, I don't suggest you go on Google and self-diagnose, because you really do need to see blood work and other different imbalances that may be going on in the body. Are you struggling with some kind of emotional eating? Do you have other hormone imbalances going on? Do you have candida overgrowth? What are your stress levels like? Are you a people pleaser? Are you a perfectionist? Are you overbooking your schedule? Are you in negative self-talk with your body? Are you frustrated with your weight? What's your diet history? Are you currently eating? Like there's so many things to look at. So I would definitely encourage you to get support, whether it's with me, book a body freedom call. We can talk about the coaching. I do testing with my clients and I want to make the specific recommendations that your body needs. And that can be different than the next person. If there's someone else you desire to see, reach out and see them so that you can dig and identify the root issues so that you can start working on them one step at a time. Definitely, if you're suspecting you may have estrogen dominance, stop taking maca. Stop consuming every day. It's not that you don't consume them, but if you find you're, like for a lot of vegans and vegetarians, I would notice if you're having chickpeas and yams and soy and tofu and chickpea or hummus and peas and beets, if you're eating those things regularly, then we want to look at like, okay, what can we swap it out for that isn't estrogen dominant? And you can still have those things, but not as often because you're fueling it. And then there's certain things that we take to get the excess estrogen out of the body. But depending on your picture, there's certain things that will be better depending if your thyroid is good or you have a thyroid imbalance or if your cortisol is high. And usually for people who have estrogen dominance, your progesterone's low. And so we want to add in different things to help with that as well. And so I think addressing emotional eating is always the first thing that I think should be done if that's going on, because it causes so much stress on the body. It causes so much stress on the hormones and the digestive system that if we try to go the other way and address like the hormones first, yes, there's things you can start taking. However, it won't fully resolve until you deal with these other underlying emotional issues, because it's just making it worse. Are you exercising too much, right? Like that's another thing that I see with some of my clients. And I always leave it up to them, but I do make suggestions of like, if you do really want to see this change, I would suggest that you do X, Y, and Z, and it will help. And then also the emotional eating, movement, right? Getting enough sleep. If we're not getting enough sleep, or maybe your sleep's interrupted from these imbalances and you feel like you're retaining more water, you feel more inflamed, like that's a big part of this. So can you start a tech boundary where you're getting off technology at least 30 minutes before bed and you are getting to bed a bit earlier? Like optimal hormone balance time happens between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. And if we're awake during that time, it's really difficult to help regulate our hormones, including lowering cortisol and addressing that excess estrogen that's going on. And so we also want to get inflammation down. So drinking enough water is really important. Your 2 liters a day. I've mentioned the sleep, starting a self-care routine, or maybe if you can add a little bit more time into your self-care routine so that you are able to calm your nervous system down. You're able to get into relaxation. You're able to connect with yourself and breathe and meditate or tap or journal and explore your emotions. That's another big part of this. Is it's so important for us to feel emotions and process them, to release this negative stress out of the body, because stress throws the system into fight or flight, and that boosts up the cortisol and that impacts our estrogen and progesterone. So foundational pieces really start with hydration, schedule, self-care, sleep hygiene. And then if you want to get more specific, like you'll probably notice I don't recommend a lot of supplements specifically on my podcast. Like I've talked about the magnesium from Biooptimizers because that's pretty general and it's usually safe, but you'll usually never hear me go into very specific supplement, say for like lowering estrogen or dealing with progesterone, etc. And that's because number one, like I need to know your unique health picture, and certain supplements may help one thing but hurt another. And I need to make sure if you're taking medications that nothing's interfering. And I don't want to be held liable that you heard it from me and then you took it and you didn't, it's never happened, but I got to cover my butt. So those are, if you're wanting those specific recommendations, that's where private coaching would come in, and you're welcome to book a Body Freedom call and connect and talk about how we can work on that together. The other thing is nutrition, is food. And a huge block that I see for so many of my clients when we first start working together, and that I even saw for myself, was eating foods that weren't in alignment for where my hormones were at, and not taking the time to do food prep so that I had nourishing food available that would set me up for success, to choose better nourishment that was going to help reduce the inflammation in my body that was also fueling my estrogen dominance. So I find people get bored with their food. Are you one of those people who are just like, I'm bored with it? And then when I get bored with it, I just like go off and eat things that I normally wouldn't eat because I'm kind of rebelling and I don't want to eat the same thing. I think food prep and a meal plan are very different, and I don't do meal plans. I like to just like plan out different things that I want to eat, but I don't stick to a meal plan because that becomes restrictive. But if you have a lot of different variety of food available, then you can choose what you want to have. And so this is what really inspired me over the last 6 months to seriously think about creating a really fun food prep course. And that's how Food Prep Magic was born, because I really want to show people. It's one thing to tell people in sessions, but I wanted to create a program where I do prep every Sunday. I'm hosting the program on Sundays at 12 Mountain Time. It will all be recorded, and then you can watch the replays as many times as you want because you get lifetime access to the program. But I wanted to do it when I actually do food prep because I want to help you build the habit. That's one of the other biggest struggles, is people get into it and then they fall off with the habit. And so we're going to be prepping like over 4 Sundays, and being that it's over Canadian Thanksgiving, we take that weekend off. And so it's like 5 weeks where you're going to get to build this habit, which is a great amount of time to build such a beautiful gift of nourishment for yourself and even your family. And we're going to be going through how simple it can be. I don't make it complicated. I want to show you how easy it can be, and I want to give you all my tips and tricks. And that's why I'm so excited to do it live. So I'm going to share a little bit more about the program. And if you want to come and dive in and play with us and cook with us or watch and cook after, you're so welcome to do so. So Food Prep Magic, I just love the name because it is about learning the tips and tricks to make food prep easy, fun, and rich in variety so you never experience food boredom again. And I want to bring love into the food. Like, the more love I put into our food, the better it tastes. So you're going to be discovering the medicinal properties of different foods, teas, and spices to help reduce cravings, support better blood sugar, support gut health, hormones, and more. And something that's so interesting is you'll probably find that you're not throwing out half or most of your produce that went bad because you had every good intent in mind, but then you actually didn't end up getting to do the food prep. This program is really designed to teach you how to save money, because you will, because you're not throwing out the food that goes bad, and up to 68 hours of time throughout the week that you don't have to cook, that you could be doing self-care or getting outside or spending time with your family, relaxing, connecting with yourself. When you dedicate like 90 minutes on the weekend or whenever you decide to do your food prep, it opens up so much time through the week. And I love it, because when I prep on Sunday, I don't mind taking the time, because then I literally don't have to make any lunches through the week or any dinners, aside from maybe like Friday, when we pretty much eat all the prep that was made. So what do you get in this course? We will be connecting for 4 different 90-minute live food prep magic sessions on Zoom, and you get all the information after you sign up the Zoom link. At the end of those 4 sessions, I'm going to be hosting a 60-minute live Q&A so that we can go over any questions that you have, any questions about emotional eating or the recipes or the food prep, or maybe you have a question about digestion or hormones. I'll do the best that I can to answer your questions. And of course, when we're doing the food prep live, you're free to leave your comments and your questions in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them in real time, or I may say if it's a longer one that we'll bring it into the Q&A. And like I said, if you can't make the sessions live, they all will be recorded and uploaded, and you will get them for life, so you can come back and revisit them as many times as you want. You are welcome to come and prep live with me. There will be the recipes with the grocery lists, and you also get my Amber-approved cookbook, which has 65 gluten, dairy, and refined sugar-free recipes, and we will be taking some of the recipes from that book to do food prep with, but you will get the grocery lists and the recipes for all of the food prep. You don't have to make all of the recipes with me. You can pick one thing to make. It's completely up to you, and I want you to do it at your pace. You also will get a really beautiful worksheet for week 1 where we go over medicinal properties of foods, teas, and spices. And I'll dive into that a little bit more right away, but that's going to be really fun. And then in session 4, we're going to talk more about cravings and their meanings. And we're going to talk about alternative food product recommendations and ingredient recommendations if you have different food sensitivities. So that's going to be really informative and helpful as well, because I find that's another block for people is they have sensitivities and then they're like, I don't know what to have. I don't know what to make. I don't have a good trusted recipe or food product. And then it's easier to go back to old choices, and then you suffer, and that's not fun. There will be a private Facebook group where everyone's going to be able to share questions, share photos of their recipes that they make. And it's going to be a beautiful community for people to come together and be on this food journey together. So you'll get access to that. And also you'll get access to my mindful eating practice that you will be able to access as soon as you come into the program. And like I've been saying, it is lifetime access that you get. So I just want to go through what is available each week. So we start Sunday, September 19th. Like that's coming up really fast. So week 1 is medicinal benefits of foods, teas, spices for gut health, hormones, blood sugar, and more. So I'm going to be sharing key ingredients from foods, teas, and spices that help with inflammation, regulating blood sugar, hormones, cravings, digestion, and we'll kind of go into how to pair them in different meals and snacks and drinks that are going to support your well-being. And we will make some fun recipes that day to show how easy it is to mix in those medicinal ingredients. Week 2 is all about breakfast and snack prep. So I am going to be sharing all kinds of simple recipes and hacks for easy breakfast prep, sweet and savory, making sure you're also getting enough protein and fat in your meals and snacks. Session 3, week 3 is lunch and dinner prep. Never be bored with your savory meals again. We're then going to continue to add those medicinal foods, teas, and spices into your lunch and dinner and make sure that you're getting the nutrients that you need to feel satiated and satisfied. And doing food prep helps reduce emotional eating triggers because you're set up with better choices. And week 4 is all about identifying secret ingredients to help with cravings, exploring cravings and their meanings, and talking about alternative ingredients in food products. And I'm also sharing sharing some of my favorite holiday, fall, pumpkin, and fall recipes that I'm going to be sharing and making with you in session 4 as well. And then we have the 60-minute Q&A that will happen the following Wednesday. So if you are interested and you want to come and join us for this program, it will be very beneficial because you're going to be learning how to understand food as medicine and how it can support your health and well-being. And you're going to get to build a beautiful food prep habit, which I think is just such a gift, being that we're meeting week over week consecutively. And taking the time really does save you a lot of time throughout the week. It's massive. So if you're wanting to come and join, the program is regularly $333 US, which is just over 420 Canadian. And I'm offering an early bird. So if you want to come and sign up, you can use the code FoodPrepMagic, all caps, and save $111. And that will expire Monday, September 13th at 11 p.m. Mountain Time. So you do have some time to come in. You are welcome to sign up after that. It will be the regular rate of $333. So if you have any other questions, you are welcome to email me at info@amberapproved.ca. And I am so excited about this program. It allows me to put on a different hat. It allows me to step more into some creativity. And I'm just so excited to connect with some new and familiar faces and teach this course. Feel free to bring a friend if you want, or a family member. And I hope to see you there when we start on the 19th, because it's going to be so much fun. So if you're like, oh my goodness, I really want to dive in. I want to know about my hormones. I want to address these things from the roots. You're so welcome as well to book a 30-minute body freedom call so that we can talk about private coaching. I can answer your questions and share with you more of my process and why this may be exactly what you need if it feels resonant for you. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and thank you for listening. A little bit about Food Prep Magic. I just am loving these online programs. It's such a great way to access and share more with more of you. So I hope you're enjoying it too. So you can access the show notes at amberapproved.ca/podcast/305. And that's where you will go to click to purchase Food Prep Magic. There's a banner and you just click on that. It says Food Prep Magic. You can also email me for the link, or you can DM me on Instagram. So the email is info@amberapproved.ca. Instagram is my name, Amber Romaniuk, ROMANIUK. And you can just DM me and I'm happy to give you the link, but it's also shared on my Instagram link tree, and I'll be sharing it all over social media. So if you can't find it, let me know, but it should be easy for you to find if you want to come to Food Prep Magic. If you have questions, feel free to email me. Be sure to also go to amberapproved.ca and take the emotional eating quiz and learn more about body freedom. Actually, you can also go to amberapproved.ca and click online programs, and Food Prep Magic is accessible through that as well to sign up. So you're welcome to take that route as well. And as I always say, there's no better time than the present to take action on your health and your food prep habits. So I encourage you to take action now. Have a beautiful day, a great week, and I can't wait to see all of you in Food Prep Magic next weekend and talk about how awesome the first session was. So have a great day, and I'm sending you all so much love and light. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe, review, and rate this podcast and share it with your friends. You can find me at amberapproved.ca and follow me on Instagram and YouTube at Amber Romaniuk. Join me next Sunday for another brand new episode and another step toward body freedom.